Over the last few months, we've seen a marked increase in violence and intimidation by pro-abortion groups. Left-wing mobs have gathered outside the homes of Supreme Court justices to try to intimidate them and affect their decision in the Dobbs case in blatant violation of federal law. Yet the weak and hopelessly partisan Attorney General Merrick Garland refused to enforce that federal law. It's gotten so bad that the Supreme Court marshal has had to go to the governors of Virginia and Maryland and plead with them to protect our Supreme Court justices at their homes. In one case, a Democratic hitman even traveled from California to try to assassinate Brett Kavanaugh at his home. But it's not just Supreme Court justices targeted. Pro-abortion groups, including one calling itself Jane's Revenge, has claimed credit for firebombing a pro-life organization in Madison, Wisconsin, and numerous other firebombings, attacks, and acts of vandalism against pro-life groups in more than a dozen states. The same group even attacked and vandalized the campaign office of a Republican congressman. This weekend, 3 separate churches in Maryland were all attacked, all 3 vandalized and desecrated, and 2 were set on fire. Those attacks are currently under investigation, but are also believed to be related to pro-abortion causes and groups. I'd like to ask each of you, starting with Lieutenant Governor, do you condemn the violent attacks, firebombings, and vandalism by groups like Jane's Revenge?
Thank you, Senator. Let me just say, I will emphasize that violence against anyone is wrong, and no one should experience threats to their safety or their well-being. But I would also urge everyone to bring the same energy to the attacks that are taking place against abortion providers and clinics. All across the board, violence is unacceptable. And we know that we are seeing violent acts as well as threats and attacks also on abortion providers and clinics. And that also needs to be addressed with that same energy. We know that arson, bombings, assaults, which have increased exponentially, stalkings have gone up 600% since 2020 against those that are abortion providers. So no, I condemn any acts of violence and absolutely do not believe anybody should be experience threats to their well-being and safety. But that should apply equally across the board, and everyone should be working just as hard to make sure that abortion providers and clinics also get that same protection.
Thank you, Ms. Harley.
Again, first timer. I do condemn all violence, and I would just note that abortion is an act of violence against the most innocent and vulnerable human beings.
Thank you. Professor?
I condemn violence, and I would like to note that forced birth is an act of violence as well. I have some additional statistics to share. There's been a 450% increase in blockades at clinics that provide abortion services, a 163% increase in the planting of hoax devices and suspicious packages at clinics that provide abortion care, 129% increase in invasions at clinics that provide abortion care, and 128% increase in assault and battery. So yes, we should keep that same energy across the board and protect everyone who's providing abortion care.
Ms. Matsky?
Yes, I also condemn that violence. Violence should never be carried out on anyone at any time. And pregnancy centers here recently, since the overturning, the violence has been overwhelming that we have sustained. And the amount of money we've had to spend to protect ourselves just so we can offer free services to women is unbelievable.
Doctor?
Thank you so much. I appreciate the outrage for the violence. In fact, my own family would appreciate some outrage in protection of ourselves. Dr. Lynn Weller, murdered in 1977, would have appreciated some outrage. Dr. David Gunn, murdered in 1993. Dr. John Britton in 1994. James Barrett, a volunteer, murdered in 1994. Shannon Lowney, murdered at the age of 25 in 1994. Leanne Nichols, 38, murdered in 1994. Dr. Barnett Slepian, 1998, murdered in Buffalo, New York, after returning home from his synagogue, and just hours after his wife forwarded the threat to the police. Robert Sanderson, an off-duty police officer at a clinic, murdered by who everyone now knows as Eric Rudolph in 1998. And of course, Dr. George Tiller in 2009, murdered in his own church, would have appreciated your outrage as well.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear an answer to my question. Do you condemn the violence committed by groups like Jane's Revenge?
Echoing all of my fellow panelists here, I absolutely condemn violence against everyone, including abortion providers.
Thank you.
Senator Klobuchar.